What do you do when you screw up? What do you say when you make a mistake? So many of us seem to think and feel that apologies are a sign of weakness, but are they really? Stay tuned because we're going to talk about apologies in this episode of The Unnatural Leader. Welcome to The Unnatural Leader, where we believe that leadership is a skill that can be trained and not an attribute with which we're born. I'm Andy Glenn, and my goal with these videos is to provide to you an easy-to-access resource that will help you develop the tools and skills to be a better leader. 10 years ago, I was an Army platoon leader in the Korengal Valley. For those of you that are in the military, you've likely at least heard of the Korengal Valley if you haven't had the dubious fortune of being there. For those of you that are not in the military or have not been in it especially a long time, the Korengal Valley is a particularly nasty part of Afghanistan, nicknamed the Valley of Death. Maybe you have watched the movie Restrepo or read the book by Sebastian Junger, War, both of which are about and take place in the Korengal Valley. Now, if you haven't seen those, I strongly encourage you to go watch them at some point in time. It's a fantastic movie and a great book, accurately portraying and depicting what this valley was like, at least at one particular snapshot in time. All of the footage in Restrepo is live action. It's not a drama or dramatized version of the valley. It is actual footage from real patrols going on in this valley. Regardless, this valley is a nasty place, and I had a platoon of about 40 soldiers divided across 3 different locations. So in the valley with me, I had probably 15 or 20 of these soldiers. We were responsible for building and constructing an outpost to include putting up tents, building fortifications, and creating a helicopter landing zone so we could get resupplies in. Additionally, later on, we did some road work in the area, put up a bridge as well. But all of that's tangential to this story. So at this point in time, just to kind of depict where I was, where we were working, we had just moved into tents. We had been living out under the stars. There was no real electricity. There was no power. There were no electronics. Very, very primitive living that we were working in. And one particular morning, we just moved into the tent. I remember that we were having our morning huddle talking through what we needed to accomplish that day. And I had either promised something that I couldn't deliver on, or I had given bad information. So in this meeting with my soldiers, again, 15 or 20 of them, I remember telling them that I had screwed up and that I was apologizing for that screw up. I don't remember the specifics again, but I do remember telling them that I made a mistake. And so after the meeting, we're all leaving, going about our way. One of my soldiers stayed back, and he grabbed me right before I left and pulled me aside and said, "Sir, don't ever apologize. Don't ever admit that you make a mistake. It undermines your credibility, and it does all of these negative things to you as a leader." And so I had a chance to think about it. I didn't agree with him at the time, but in retrospect, I started thinking about it more and more. I realized that many people viewed apologies as a sign of weakness. And again, I didn't agree with him then. I don't agree with him today. I don't view apologies as a sign of weakness. Quite the contrary. I think that we have to approach apologizing from a position of strength. And I think that it requires 3 attributes to be demonstrated by the leader when we apologize. And I think those are humility, security, and empathy. And we're going to talk about those here in a second. So when we apologize, what we're doing is we're saying that we did something wrong that could have been injurious to another party. We have to drop our pride when we do this, and we have to approach them from a position of understanding. Now, to be able to go into that position of understanding, we have to develop some empathy, and we have to try and figure out what they're feeling. So we approach them with this empathy and compassion, and we say, "I'm sorry that I did X, Y, or Z." Why is it important that we apologize? I think it's important because it allows us to begin to rebuild the relationship that was damaged by the action for which we're apologizing. It allows us the opportunity to rectify whatever the action was, and to continue to move forward, both in terms of that relationship as well as in terms of the work that we need to be able to get done. So apologies come about for a variety of reasons. We make mistakes in a variety of ways. It could be a very personal thing, or it could be a very professional thing. It could be misjudging and miscalculating a delivery time and an estimate on numbers. It could be just something that we said about a friend or a coworker that was inappropriate. So regardless of why we do the apology, regardless of the motivation or the action that we took that is now prompting us to have to apologize, I think that we should apologize in a manner that is very honest and very open and very transparent. We have to drop our pride. We have to be that humble leader that, if you remember, General Brown talked about several weeks ago, and we captured that in another video. We have to approach it with humility, and then we have to approach it with empathy. We have to try and understand the person that we injured, their perspective. We have to understand what impact our words or our actions had on them, and we have to try and put ourselves in their shoes as best as possible. And the reason that we're going to do that is we're going to get a more honest apology, which is going to have a better chance of rebuilding that relationship, repairing it, reconciling it, and then rectifying the situation, whatever it was, whatever the damage was. We can then begin to move forward and get our work back on track with where we need to be. So I don't care if we are apologizing to subordinates or to peers or to somebody senior to us in our organization or to our spouse or our loved ones or a friend or a stranger. Regardless, if we've done wrong, we need to apologize, and we need to approach it from that position of empathy and humility. But in order to be able to do that, we have to be secure in ourselves. So being secure enough in ourselves to approach and apologize is really a demonstration of strength and not weakness, like so many people seem to think. So what are some of the rules of apologizing? I think it's important that when we apologize, we actually say what we're doing, and we specifically say, I apologize. And then we have to say what we're apologizing for. It's not enough to say, I'm sorry, or I apologize. We have to then say, for X, Y, and Z. I did X, Y, Z, mea culpa, I apologize. And furthermore, one thing that we absolutely never ever want to say is, I'm sorry that you feel that way, because now we are projecting back on them. We're pretending to know what they're feeling, and then we are giving a false apology because we're not really saying that we did something wrong. We need to take ownership of our apologies and be very open and honest about it. Really become vulnerable and open ourselves up, saying that I apologize that I said X about you. I apologize that I was late. I apologize that I did X, Y, Z. It's very, very important that we outline the action that we did and what we said to hurt the other person. So when we apologize, we certainly hope that the other party is going to forgive us and accept our apology. But they may not. It doesn't really matter. If it's our subordinate and they don't accept our apology, it doesn't matter, because they have at least heard us say that we are sorry and that we've apologized. So they at least intuitively know it. Whether they accept it or not is not going to be further detrimental to the relationship. If it's a senior or a peer, again, they've at least heard us make amends or attempt to make amends, and whether they choose to do something with that or not is up to them at this point in time. We can't force them to accept an apology. We can't force them to forgive us. But what we can do is take ownership for the actions that we've made and done, and we can at least come to them with a heartfelt and honest apology. In addition to apologizing, sometimes we have to make some sort of reparation for the action. We might have to offer, what can I do to make this up? We might have to help with their work. We might have to do something to symbolically further demonstrate our contrition and our willingness to try and move beyond what we did. Again, they may not accept our apology, but we have to make every attempt possible to show them that we are truly and sincerely apologetic. I hope you agree that in order to apologize, we have to approach it from a position of vulnerability, which means that we have to be secure enough to do it, which really comes around to apologies are a sign of strength and not a sign of weakness. I think this idea of vulnerability is an important one in leadership theory, and I think it's going to be something that we're going to visit quite regularly here in the Unnatural Leader, talking about how do we be vulnerable and authentic to be more effective. And I really do believe that by being vulnerable, we're going to build stronger relationships and we're going to have more success as leaders. Okay, to recap this episode, many people believe that apologizing is a sign of weakness, which is not the case. When we apologize, we have to maintain the attributes of humility, empathy, and security, all of which are associated with strength. We become vulnerable and open ourselves up to our subordinates or our leaders or our peers, and we say that we understand implicitly that we know that they can hurt us, and we're able to take it because we're strong enough to take it. If you have somebody that you need to apologize to for an action in the past, take this opportunity this week and issue that mea culpa. Reach out to them and apologize, making sure that you apologize heartfeltly and that you specify the action for which you're apologizing as well. We can talk more about the physical actions that go along with it. I would encourage you to make sure that you drop your arms down when you apologize. You might tilt your head, open your eyes a little bit, and make sure that you're not smiling or smirking, which is usually how a smile would come across in the process of apologizing. So, make sure that you look them in the eye and that you issue that very heartfelt apology sometime this week. Let me know how it goes. Drop us a comment down below or reach out to me if you think that this was helpful and you've apologized to somebody for something that's happened in the past.